Listen closely, this is your wake-up call. You've been holding on to pain that's breaking you. It's time to reclaim your power, your peace, your worth. Because the moment you choose yourself, everything changes. You've been holding on for far too long, holding on to the weight of past pain, to people who once mattered but now only drain you, to memories that no longer bring comfort, only confusion and regret. You've clung to situations that no longer grow you, to versions of yourself that no longer reflect who you are becoming. Somewhere along the way you convinced yourself that if you just held on a little longer, tried a little harder, loved a little more, things would change. But the truth is, the only thing that's changing is you. And you're growing tired, bitter and burned out from carrying things that were never meant to be permanent. There is a point where holding on becomes more damaging than letting go. That pain you carry, it's not helping you heal, it's keeping you stuck. Those people who continually disappoint you, drain your spirit and disrupt your peace, why are you still making space for them? You owe it to yourself to stop watering dead plants, to stop pouring into empty cups, to stop sacrificing your well-being for the sake of familiarity. Comfort can be a prison. And what's familiar isn't always what's good for you. Letting go does not mean you failed. It does not mean you didn't care. It simply means you are no longer available for what breaks you. You are no longer willing to stay small for the sake of keeping someone else comfortable. You are no longer pretending that broken promises and empty words are enough to keep you going. You're not giving up, you're rising up. You're releasing what no longer aligns with the person you're becoming. It takes courage to let go. It takes strength to choose peace over chaos, to walk away from what you once begged to stay. But growth demands release. You cannot receive the new if your hands are still full of the old. You cannot walk into your future if you're still tied to the past. You deserve to live freely. You deserve to wake up without dread. You deserve relationships that lift you, not ones that leave you questioning your worth. Letting go is a powerful act of self-love. It says, I matter. My peace matters. My mental health matters. My future matters. It says, you are no longer willing to shrink yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. It says, you are no longer available for dysfunction. And once you make that decision, once you commit to protecting your peace, you will begin to feel lighter. Not immediately, not all at once, but slowly, day by day, you'll feel your strength returning, your clarity will sharpen, your joy will rise. This is your permission to release, not with anger, not with resentment, but with love for yourself. You are not responsible for fixing everything or everyone. You are responsible for choosing you. And the moment you do, everything in your life will begin to shift. Because what's meant for you will never ask you to suffer to keep it. Let go and make room for what you truly deserve. There comes a point in life when you must ask yourself, how much longer will I trade my peace for someone else's approval? How many more times will you silence your own needs just to keep the peace in a relationship that's slowly tearing you apart? You gave away your joy, your boundaries and your sense of self. Not because you were weak, but because you were hoping that love, loyalty and effort would be enough to make it work. But love, real love, never requires you to abandon yourself in the process. You are told that compromise is part of love. That's true, but compromise should never cost you your dignity. Somewhere along the way, you began to confuse being chosen with being valued. You started believing that if you just did more, gave more, forgave more, they would see your worth. You kept pouring from an empty cup, hoping that eventually someone would pour back into you. But all it did was leave you tired, used, and questioning your worth. Holding on to what's breaking you is not an act of strength, it's an act of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not being enough. But what you must understand is that self-respect begins the moment you stop settling for relationships, environments, and behaviors that diminish your spirit. It begins the moment you realize that peace is more important than approval and that no amount of outside validation will ever fill the void created by abandoning yourself. Respecting yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. It is the foundation of every decision you make and every relationship you keep. When you respect yourself, you stop chasing people who only tolerate you. You stop allowing people to come and go as they please, using your heart as a revolving door. You stop bending over backwards to prove your worth to people who never deserved your time in the first place. Self-respect says, I choose me, even if it means standing alone. I choose me, even if it means walking away from what once felt like everything. It's not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, to choose yourself in a world that constantly tells you to put others first. But there is freedom in walking away from what no longer honors your value. There is healing in setting a boundary and standing firm in it, even if your voice trembles. There is power in saying, this is not enough for me anymore, and meaning it. Approval fades, opinions change, people can be fickle. But self-respect? That stays, that grows, that becomes the guiding light that leads you out of dark places. When you begin to prioritize your own peace over the need to be liked or accepted, you begin to transform. You begin to attract people who meet you where you are, who see your value without you having to prove it. Respect yourself enough to let go of anything that makes you feel like you're hard to love, because you're not. You are just giving your love to the wrong people. Now, it's time to give that love to yourself. Knowing your worth is not about arrogance or thinking you're better than others. It's about understanding that you are enough, as you are, and refusing to settle for anything that falls short of what aligns with your value. Your self-worth is the silent force that shapes your reality. It determines the kind of relationships you accept, the opportunities you chase, and the way people treat you. When you fail to recognize your worth, you unintentionally send a message to the world that you're okay with less love, less respect, less fulfillment. But when you value yourself, you raise the bar, and the world responds accordingly. Your boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are the standards you set to protect your peace, your time, and your energy. They say, this is how I deserve to be treated. This is what I will no longer tolerate. When you lack boundaries, people will treat you based on their needs, not your worth. And often, they'll take as much as you allow. That's not cruelty, it's human nature. But it's also why setting boundaries is essential. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. Somewhere in life, many of us were taught that saying no makes us selfish, that expressing our needs is demanding, that choosing ourselves is rude. So we stayed quiet. We made ourselves small. We let things slide, thinking we were being kind, generous, or patient. But slowly, our silence turned into resentment. Our people-pleasing turned into burnout. And that's when we realized being nice without boundaries is a trap. When you know your worth, you stop begging for scraps of affection. You stop chasing people who make you feel like you have to earn their love. You no longer settle for being tolerated when you deserve to be celebrated. You begin to move with a quiet confidence, not loud, not boastful, but firm. You walk away from tables where respect isn't served. You speak up when something doesn't sit right in your soul. You say no without guilt and yes only when it feels right. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about creating healthy space for relationships to thrive, built on mutual respect, understanding, and honesty. The people who truly care about you will understand your boundaries. They may not like them at first, especially if they've benefited from your lack of them. But they'll adjust, because love respects limits. And those who don't, they were never meant to stay. You are not difficult for expecting to be treated with kindness and consideration. You are not too much for wanting consistency, honesty, and respect. You are simply someone who knows their worth. And when you live from that place, life changes. You attract better, you demand better, and most importantly, you feel better. Because you are finally honoring yourself. You're finally showing the world what you've known all along. You are worthy, you are enough, and you deserve to be treated that way. There's a big difference between being kind and being a doormat. Kindness is a strength, a powerful force that can heal, uplift, and connect. But kindness without boundaries becomes a weakness that people exploit. Too often we confuse patience with passivity, compassion with compliance, We allow repeated disrespect under the disguise of being nice, hoping that our understanding will eventually change someone's behavior. But here's the truth. If you don't draw the line, people will keep crossing it. And the longer you let it happen, the more it becomes your normal. People notice what you tolerate. They learn what's acceptable based on how you react, or fail to. If someone disrespects you and you stay silent, they assume it's okay. If someone uses your kindness and you make excuses for it, they believe they can keep doing it. This isn't about blaming others. It's about recognizing the power you have in shaping the way you treat it. Every time you ignore a red flag, every time you allow someone to cross a boundary without consequence, you're reinforcing the idea that your peace doesn't matter. And it does. Boundaries are not about ego, they are about emotional safety. They are the lines you draw to protect your time, your energy, your heart. Without them, you end up depleted. Constantly giving, constantly bending, constantly trying to please people who take without giving anything back. You become resentful, tired, and disconnected from yourself. You begin to wonder why people don't value you, but the truth is, you've been showing them that they don't have to. You've been overextending yourself for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you in return. Being kind does not mean you owe everyone access to your life. You can be respectful and still say no. You can be loving and still walk away. You can have a soft heart and still refuse to be stepped on. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet moments where you choose to protect your peace over pleasing others. Sometimes it's in the decision to walk away from people who don't honor your boundaries, even if they call you difficult or cold. People who truly care about you will respect your limits. They won't push you to your edge. They won't make you feel guilty for prioritizing your well-being. But the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries, they will resist. They will guilt you, gaslight you, and label you selfish. Don't fall for it. That resistance isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're finally doing something right. Stop shrinking to keep the peace. Stop over-explaining your worth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your soul. You are not here to be walked on. You are here to grow, to thrive, and to stand in your power. You are allowed to be kind and firm. You are allowed to love others and still choose yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you don't respect yourself enough to set boundaries, no one else will. The way you treat yourself sets the tone for every relationship in your life. People don't learn how to treat you based solely on what you say. They learn by observing what you allow. If you constantly put yourself last, apologize for your existence, or tolerate disrespect in silence, others will mirror that same energy. They will believe it's acceptable to speak over you, to ignore your needs, to push your boundaries, because you have shown them that you'll stay no matter how you're treated. We often think that respect is something we demand from others, but it starts from within. How you talk to yourself, how you prioritize your needs, how you honor your time, all of it sends a message. When you constantly put yourself down, neglect your own well-being, or chase validation from those who give you nothing in return, you are telling the world that your value is negotiable. And it's not. You teach people how to treat you through every interaction. If someone sees that you never speak up when they cross the line, they assume you're okay with it. If you continue giving chances to someone who only takes from you, they'll believe they never have to change. It's not that people are always malicious. Sometimes they're just responding to the boundaries, or lack of them, that you've set. But the moment you start walking away from what drains you, everything shifts. When you begin honoring yourself, truly honoring your time, your energy, your worth, people either rise to meet your standards or they fall away. Either way you win. Because the ones who stay are the ones who see your value without needing to be reminded. They treat you with care, with consistency, and with respect, because you've shown them that nothing less will be accepted. Taking back control doesn't always require confrontation. Sometimes it's as simple as no longer explaining yourself to people who don't care to understand. It's refusing to argue with someone committed to misunderstanding you. It's letting go of relationships that feel one-sided, where you're always giving and rarely receiving. Walking away is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the awareness that peace is better than forced connection, that your mental health is more important than someone's temporary presence in your life. Self-respect is a form of self-care. It means not abandoning yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. It means recognizing that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. When you begin to treat yourself with the love, patience and respect you've been offering others, the world starts to follow your lead. You don't have to beg people to treat you right. You don't have to explain why you're worthy of kindness. Start showing up for yourself and watch how others start doing the same. Because the energy you send out is the energy that returns to you. When you walk in alignment with your worth, you stop settling, you stop shrinking, and most importantly, you start living in the power of who you were always meant to be. Loneliness can feel heavy, but it's not nearly as damaging as losing yourself in the wrong relationships. Too many people stay tied to toxic connections, not because they're truly happy, but because they're afraid of being alone. They fear the silence, the stillness, the emptiness that might come when someone finally walks out. But what they don't realize is that there is nothing lonelier than being surrounded by people who make you feel invisible, unworthy, or not enough. That kind of loneliness cuts deeper than any quiet room ever could. Real love does not demand that you shrink. It doesn't ask you to dim your light or bury your truth to make someone else feel comfortable. If a relationship constantly forces you to question your value, compromise your integrity, or sacrifice your peace, that's not love, that's control, that's fear. That's manipulation wrapped in the disguise of companionship. And the longer you stay, the more you start to forget who you were before you accepted the pain as normal. When you give yourself permission to walk away from these toxic patterns, something powerful happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. You begin to rebuild the parts of yourself that were silenced. You begin to reconnect with your dreams, your goals, your identity. All the things you let fade in the background just to hold on to people who were never holding you the same way. And yes, in the beginning, that solitude might feel like a loss, but it's not. It's a return to yourself, a return to your peace, a return to your power. Being alone doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you're choosing to wait for a connection that uplifts instead of destroys. It means you're no longer willing to pay the price of emotional turmoil just to say you have someone. You can love deeply and still walk away from someone who's wrong for you. You can care and still choose yourself. That's not cold, that's clarity. That's wisdom born from experience. The truth is, many people would rather tolerate mistreatment than face the discomfort of solitude. But what they don't see is that in their effort to avoid loneliness, they end up abandoning themselves. They betray their own needs, their own standards, their own voice, all to keep a connection that's already broken. You deserve more than that. You deserve a life where you don't have to beg for attention, where you don't have to fight to be respected, where you don't have to question your worth daily. Give yourself permission to be alone if it means keeping your dignity. Choose peace over chaos. Choose growth over attachment. The right people, the ones who truly see you, will never require you to sacrifice who you are just to be loved. They will meet you where you are, and they will add to your life, not drain it. Until then, stand tall in your solitude, because there's power in being alone and still choosing yourself. At the heart of it all, this journey isn't just about letting go of toxic people or walking away from what no longer serves you. It's about returning to yourself. It's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your identity after years of compromise, silence, and self-abandonment. You were never meant to live small, to chase validation, or to tolerate disrespect disguised as love. You were meant to stand tall in your truth, to set boundaries without guilt, and to know your worth so deeply that anything less becomes unacceptable. Self-respect is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to stay and when to walk away, when to give and when to protect your energy. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And when you choose yourself, unapologetically, everything around you begins to change. The wrong people fall away, the right ones step in, The peace you were searching for externally begins to grow within. So stop shrinking, stop settling, stop giving pieces of your soul just to keep broken things whole. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to demand more. You are allowed to walk away from anything that no longer honors your growth, your joy, and your dignity. This is your reminder. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are not meant to carry what breaks you. You are meant to rise. Let go. Respect yourself. Protect your peace. And never again allow the world to make you forget your power. Because when you remember who you are truly, deeply, nothing and no one can take that from you.